Really? Okay. It's telling me I don't have permission to live stream. So luckily I'm recording. So I'll just put it up after this call. We'll go ahead and get started. Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to the Mike Lead Aspire session sponsored by AWS. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Like I said, like I told everyone, I'm going to go full screen just to talk through some things and to talk about what's going on. You will have an opportunity at the end of the session to ask questions. So I'll open it up and allow folks to talk a little bit after. So I'll be talking to myself or talking to you, and you'll be listening, and we'll go from there. And again, we'll have an opportunity before. So hopefully you guys can see my screen. It says you can see my screen. So I'll go ahead and get started. If there's a couple people that have my cell phone number, if y'all can't see it, text me and say, Mary, we can't see your screen. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, you guys. So let's start with an introduction about minorities in cybersecurity. For those of you that are on the webinar that do not know about minorities in cybersecurity or are watching this as a streaming and repeat. Our mission at Minorities in Cybersecurity is to provide training and support for minorities, women, and non-binary cybersecurity talent, so you guys can excel in your leadership roles, and we have the support that you need to excel in your roles as you continue to move forward in your career. Our vision, of course, is to, like I said, help you guys grow and assist you to achieve your highest level of success, whatever that may be, however you define that. And we'll help you establish that with our goals and things like that. Our passion, of course, we have a lot of individuals involved in our organization that are just want to see you succeed. And so we do feel that there's a gap. There's a gap in knowledge, there's a gap in opportunities, and we're trying to fill that gap by, breaking down barriers, but also bringing you guys along. And we do that through our programming. This is one of my favorite quotes by John C. Maxwell: to add growth, you lead followers; to multiply, you lead leaders. So essentially, we're here for minorities in cybersecurity to help you become the next generation of cybersecurity leaders in this space. So what is Mike Lead? Mike Lead, we have minorities in cybersecurity is broken down into 4 levels of individuals. We have our aspirers, which is this group. This programming is catered to the aspirers, which are those that are in college, transitioning, or looking to get into the cybersecurity space. What is cybersecurity? These are knowledge sessions that AWS is sponsoring to come out and talk to you guys about what you could potentially do and what it looks like. Mike Lead, we have our Mike Lead Builders course. Builders are those that are in a cybersecurity role or IT role that are looking to build out their career entry level all the way up. And then our communicators are those individuals that have been in a space for a while that are looking to move to people leadership. And then our directors are those that are looking to get into director level roles. So that we call that Mike Lead, aspires, builders, communicators, directors. So you'll see that out there. You'll see Mike Lead Mike Lead aspirers, Mike Lead builders, Mike Lead communicators, Mike Lead directors. So now you kind of sort of know what we're talking about when you see the A, B, C, and D attached to the Mike Lead programming. So like I said, the aspirers, these are series of training. This is hour-long training that's going to happen on the 2nd and 4th Friday of every month. There are going to be individuals coming here talking to you about the cybersecurity roles, what they do. AWS will have and come and talk about how it is to work at AWS. So you'll get just a breakdown of essentially what does cybersecurity mean? What does it mean? How do you now go about trying to transition into cybersecurity? The goal for these sessions is to provide those that are new or aspiring to be in the profession the opportunity to learn what's out there. And we'll get into what traditional stuff is today. And I'm leading this particular session just so we can do an introduction and how this stuff is going to go. So again, this is going to be 2nd and 4th. These are hour-long sessions on the Fridays. So our Mike Lead Builders is a course. It's a 5-month course. It is for those individuals that are entry level. So you have your first cybersecurity role. Now, what are you going to do? Because a lot of times we get into roles and there are things that come up that we don't really know how to handle, how to deal with. And so the Mike Lee's Builders course is designed for those individuals that are in that entry level to mid career level, that they're looking to build out their leadership ability. And the Builders course actually starts tomorrow. It's, like I said, it's 5 months. It happens on Saturdays. It's 30 hours every other Saturday. So if you are in a cybersecurity role or IT related role and you are not in one of our courses, then you shouldn't be an aspirer. You are a builder. You're building out your cybersecurity career, right? But the Builders course is, like I said, 5 months. It's 3 hours every other Saturday, and we take people through leadership building exercises and things that they need to know. You know, one of particularly the session that I teach is how to relate your job to goals and objectives of the business, because you have to start to think about how your role impacts the business and how important it is. The Communicators course is a 6-month, 40-hour program. It also happens on Saturdays. It's 3 hours every other Saturday, opposite the Builders. So the Communicators started last Saturday on the 7th. And those are individuals that are looking to get into people leadership. So that transition from individual contributors. So you've gotten and you've been a superstar your whole career, and you got there, and now you want to go into people leadership. What does that look like? What do you need to know? And that's what we're doing in that Communicators course. We started that course last year, so we had 2 cohorts last year. We just started our 3rd cohort, and we've had some great outputs and great group of folks that are in those particular courses that are now advancing in their career and getting some things that they can break down in that session. So let's see. There we go. I think somebody informed me that you were seeing my other screen. So hopefully you are now seeing the full screen and not my notes and things like that. Thank you, Mary Galloway, for helping me out. So let's see. The My Directors course is now in development. It is going to be a 1-year course, and we're looking to get started and do that. That's going to be after the conference. We have a conference coming up in March. And so that's going to be a situation where once we're past the conference, I can start to focus on what that Mike Directors course will look like. So why are we here today? We're here today to talk about the SOC. So Security Operations Center. What does SOC mean? A SOC means you're a firefighter. Essentially, you are there's a lot of different roles that go into the Security Operations Center, and we can talk about those. And we're going to talk about those individual roles, and you'll hear some of this stuff when you're out there and as you're looking for individual roles in a particular company. When someone says cybersecurity, you know, we all have been conditioned to think of the folks behind the keyboard, and those folks usually sit in the Security Operations Center, right? And I ran, for those of you, you don't know my background, I didn't really introduce myself, I just went into it, but I ran the Security Operations Center for J&J. So a lot of what we're talking about will be individual folks that were on my teams and what they did and what it looked like for them on a day-to-day basis. I'm a former FBI agent, so I've been in incident response since the FBI. And so even when I had my director level roles within corporate America, I was still firefighting. I was still incident response, trying to figure out how some incident happened, right? So Security Operations Center roles that I had within my SOC in Johnson & Johnson, they call it Blue Team. When I started, they didn't call it Blue Team, they called it incident responders or cyber defense or network defense. So you'll hear a lot of different things. You'll hear network engineer, security engineer, you'll hear analyst, you'll hear engineers, responders, analysts, all with the security title in front of it. And it all depends on the organization, the company, and how they define what that looks like. But you can loosely say an analyst will be looking at certain incident related tickets or doing something where they have to respond to some or provide some type of intel. Engineers are usually those that are working hands-on with the tools. That's loose, because I've seen sales engineer, which I don't really know what that means. But again, all that to be said, it all depends on the company. And we are good in the technology space of, let's see, naming something or rebranding something to be the same thing. Like I said, blue team is somewhat new. The blue team, I'm sorry, let's define what a blue team is. The blue team is usually your SOC people. Those are the folks that are usually trying to prevent. When you think about prevent, detect, respond, when we start talking about security related events, those are those folks that are essentially trying to deal with vulnerabilities and things like that, and shoring up and working with internal teams to try to reduce the risk posture for an organization. A security analyst, a SOC analyst, incident responder, L1, L2, L3, network engineer, SIM engineer, all of these are all the types of titles. So a security analyst could be an L1 analyst. Okay, L1, L2, L3. Let's back out. A L1 analyst, when you think about what an L1 analyst is, or an entry-level security analyst, think about when you get a virus on your computer. There are tools in the Security Operations Center that actually start to light up when individuals have if it's working right, if they have the right tools in their environment, the little red lights will start going off saying Mary has a virus, tell her to go clean up her PC. That's usually what an L1 does. An L1 is looking at the security related tools, looking at our antivirus or our endpoint detection tools and saying, okay, this is something going on with an individual on our network. We need to go clean it up, clean it off. You know, if you unfortunately have a issue with ransomware, all the bells and whistles start going out. And I tell stories, so I'll probably get into a couple of stories that I can share about the Security Operations Center a little bit later. But just think about that. So L1 is your typical entry level, you know, similar to what we're doing in, let's just say provisioning, or, you know, that entry level. There's usually a process associated with what they're doing. So they're looking at tickets and they're firefighting with the tickets. An L2 analyst is supposed to be one step more mature. So what I would say with that, an L2 analyst is, think about, you have a virus, Mary has a virus, right? I'll go clean it off. But let's say we have 7 viruses, right? And that's the 7 employees that have a virus that are concentrated in California. Well, we just so happen to have our research and development facility in California. So that's interesting. So let's go investigate. So your L2 analyst usually tries to look at patterns and tries to develop or try to identify patterns in behavior, or based on what they're seeing out there. It's based on maturity. So in your L1 analyst could escalate stuff to your L2s. And it's like, okay, well, let's go track this down to see what that means, if it means anything. And then there are times you have your L3s, which are usually internal. So your L1s could be external. They could be a managed service provider, which is what I had at J&J. My L1 analyst was our managed service provider. And when they escalated tickets, it went to our L2s. And our L2s will look at it and try to figure out if there was anything of cause of concern, and then they will escalate that potentially to a 3rd level within the Security Operations Center, which is usually a full-time. Your L2s and L3s are usually full-time employees with organizations that are actually there to add a little more color. So it's like, okay, we have, for instance, in my example, we have our R&D folks that there's a concentration of viruses that are R&D folks. Now we start to figure out, okay, did they go to a conference, or did they pick up back then? Okay, I sound old, but it's not really that long ago where they actually had thumb drives. I don't even know if you guys use them anymore, but thumb drives were big in organizations. And when you go to a conference, they would give away branded items, and those branded items would be those thumb drives. And unfortunately, people come back to the office and stick them in their computer. And sometimes that wasn't a good thing, especially if they were a targeted organization, if they were a target organization. So that's sort of kind of what the L1, L2, L3 looks like. Your incident responder is just that, when there is an incident that happens. And there is a difference between, having a security incident as opposed to having a security related event. So the nuance there is, in our example, we have a whole bunch of viruses. We're going to go and we're going to look. That's a security related event, right? Okay, so now let's build on our example. We say we have a concentration of viruses in our R&D department. They all went to a conference based on, whatever we're doing in R&D. That could potentially be a security related incident because potentially they have been targeted. So those are the types of things, and how that round and round goes within the Security Operations Center. Like I said, your blue team are usually your network folks. They're network defenders. A lot of stuff right now is in the cloud. So now it's cloud security engineer or cloud security analyst. It's the same function. It's just being done from a cloud-related proxy or a cloud-related service. So essentially, a CASB, a cloud access security broker, is one of those things that a cloud security analyst could be looking at on their day-to-day. So they're looking at to see the same events that we just talked about, right? Whether they're happening within the cloud. Your SIM engineer is basically your security incident and event management tool. That's what we had before CASB. So when everything was on-prem, essentially we had technologies that all of our logs went into the SIM, and logs, firewall logs, IDS logs, IPS logs, all of those other things went into this SIM related tool. And this SIM related tool was designed to correlate all of those logs, to parse out, to try to figure out where these incidents, if there were incidents occurring. It was all pretty cute, all pretty heavy. Now that everything is in the cloud, you lose sight of a lot of stuff. When everything was sitting behind, BlackBerry, right? I literally, okay, don't tell nobody. I literally just got rid of I had a BlackBerry tablet. I literally just got rid of it like this year, like within the past 13 days. But you had your BlackBerries, you had your secure, everything was behind this wall, and everything was on-prem, and it's like now you're moving stuff and everything is out pretty much in the cloud, but you lose sight of it, especially when you start talking about whether it is a single tenant or multi-tenant, meaning whether it's your company, just your company in this particular tenant, or if it's multiple companies in this tenant. So how do you now distinguish, or where do you put your tools where you have visibility into whether or not this is my tenant, this is my problem, and the more dispersed things get, and the more you utilize services that are sitting out there in the cloud, the less likely you're going to be able to determine a security incident. And we'll get into that just based on my life today. And I have an example a little bit later for that. So those are the types of roles. Some of the other roles that I had in my Security Operations Center. So I had a big one, a big enough team. It was 30 plus when I was at J&J. So I established my Security Operations Center based on the Lockheed Martin kill chain. If you're not familiar with that, go out there and look it up. It's just what we would say is a way of looking at security events based on where the focal point is. So, my security intel folks, the threat intel folks, our threat intel folks were looking at dark web stuff, right? What do we have out there? What's going on out there? And there were a couple of incidents that we had that, we were firefighting on based on breaches that were found out there. So Ashley Madison comes to mind. That was Ashley Madison was a site for men that were cheating on their wives. And so when that dump happened, if you're not familiar with that particular case, the hackers actually just dumped email accounts that was on the site. There were several J&J emails that were out there on that particular dump. And we were able to get access because we had our intel folks that were out there looking to determine which email accounts were out there. And so we were able to reach out to those individuals that had their emails and explain to them that we need them to change their passwords and things of that nature. It was also a situation where within our SOC, we were working with our marketing team, and there was a group that was not necessarily happy of a commercial that we did. And we got wind in our threat intel of a email spamming campaign that was coming and directed towards the CEO at the time. And we were able to put defenses in place to prevent that from having an impact on our CEO's email. So the intel piece of it was a nuanced piece, but we were able, like I said, we were scouring all the external, because that sort of purple team, right? It's in between the white hat and the black hat, but we were doing it just to protect ourselves, so to protect the brand. And then I had my internal threat analysts. And internal threat are literally what it sounds like. It's employees that are either purposely or by mistake doing something that they're not supposed to do, which causes us to have a security related issue. So it could be they're stealing intellectual property or there are other organizations that I was in that I had tools that I could ultimately, if someone gave their 2 weeks notice, we were monitoring their activity and seeing what kind of activity that they were doing, if they were downloading different things to external drives, thumb drives, or if they were uploading information to the cloud. We would now actually take and look at that type of activity. And so vulnerability management is another area that could potentially be in the Security Operations Center. So you have all of these vulnerabilities that potentially exist based on things that are out there, whether it be Microsoft, whatever tool, whatever you're doing, there's always going to be someone trying to break it. So there are always going to be vulnerabilities. So vulnerability management sometimes sits within the Security Operations Center. And of course, the reverse engineer, those that are looking at malware, doing malware analysis, and they're actually, decoding the code and things of that nature. A database analyst is something that I had in one of my roles, and that was pretty slick because usually when you have a database, you have a bunch of DBAs that are doing database, but they're not really thinking about it from a security perspective, whether that database is something that's internet facing, what do those vulnerabilities look like, how do we now manage, who has access to particular objects, admin roles and things of that nature. And then we have forensics as well within an e-discovery within the Security Operations Center. So I've had all of those roles available to me and added to me under my responsibility within the Security Operations Center. So many of there are various levels, like entry level threat intel person. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone that has a high technical background, those are where your psych majors come in, right? When you start to figure out, from a psychology perspective, why a criminal does what they do. And I often say, even, when I work with the FBI, we talk about cyber as if there's not a person behind it. And sometimes if you can get to the motivation, you can try to determine who that person is, right? And so it's sort of, the criminal minds type of thing, where you're doing a cyber related profiling and things of that nature to determine, like, you guys understand the difference between what a script kiddie is, what someone that's a nation state threat actor, as opposed to, internal threat actor or someone that's made a mistake. And the mentality determines motivation. And then if you can determine motivation, you can try to fight, the opportunity that exists. E-discovery is legal side. Whenever you have a case against you, there are documents that have to remain within the organization. And I've had that within my purview as well, where, litigation hold is what it's called. Someone files a lawsuit, then, against a particular person, and nothing gets deleted, and you have to go through a certain rigor in order to ensure that nothing is happening from that perspective. So those are all the things that we've talked about. I think that if you want to be a firefighter, if you want to work in the Security Operations Center, here's some things you need to know. Okay, hackers always attack on Friday. My example is going to show you that. I have a story for today. They didn't know they were going to be my story for today, but they are. There is no security incident that I've ever investigated that came from our internal tools. I just got finished. I'm sorry. I just got finished telling you all of the tools that we had within our Security Operations Center, all the things we were doing to keep the lights on. But I tell you, the biggest incidents I've had to deal with have come from customers, law enforcement, or vendors, or some type of third party. And it's very, very disheartening to understand that, or to know that. It's very, very disheartening to be in a situation where you're getting a call, and it's always on a freaking Friday. You're getting a call and someone is saying, hey, we have a problem, Houston, there is a problem. So it is what the work that we do, excuse me, is very, very, very important. If there was nothing out there, then the hackers will be roaming free. Nothing is ever perfect. There's always going to be people that spend 24 hours a day trying to break something or break into something. And then you have the cyber defenders, the blue teams that are sitting in the Security Operations Center just putting out fires. And there are times that fires come, and and you're just like, how in the world did this happen? And so there are plenty of incident related stories that I can share with you. My very first incident leaving the FBI, as I was newly minted in GE Capital, we got a call. Now, literally, it was the first week I was there. We got a call from one of our customers saying that their personal information was out there. And then you immediately go into firefighting mode because you're trying to figure out why in the world this happened. Long story short, code change happened. In the code, there is what is called a robot.txt file. That robot.txt file, if it says yes, allows Google to crawl your site. If it says no, doesn't allow Google to crawl your site. Well, a code change had happened and someone turned the no into a yes, and then Google essentially crawled the site and scraped all the information out there, which included customer data. And so that was my first incident. That was my first week, but it was really enlightening to know that it came from the customer. No one knew it was out there. And then I still try to figure out I still can't figure out how they found me, because I literally was my first week. I'm still trying to figure out how they found my phone number, because I don't think I even have my laptop yet, but I did have a phone. But all that to be said, those are what you're dealing with when you're in the Security Operations Center, and the type of roles that are in there. You just prepare to be in firefighting. So our example for today. And unfortunately, I delete stuff really fast. So what happened today is that I got an email from a former client that said, CEO is sharing this file with you. So I hadn't heard from this client in 6, 7, 8 months. So the question is, why in the world would they be sharing a file with me? And I looked at it, and it looked like one of my phishing things, right? It looked like something that I would do to phish my fellow employees, because I've done this before. And so I was sitting there, and you guys honestly understand, I get the email and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm sitting right here looking at it. I'm like, no, that person wouldn't be sharing anything with me. So I immediately deleted. And not only did I delete it, I go into my deleted items and I purge the email. So that's why I don't have the original email to show you, but I do have the chain afterwards. So I sent, and hopefully you guys can see that. I sent it, and you see it says 2:04 p.m. That's what time it happened. Today is what? Friday the 13th. It never fails. Friday incidents. I sent this email and said, I received this email from the CEO sharing what it was called a financial audit with me. I said it looked really fishy, so I deleted it and I didn't click on anything. However, I want to make you guys aware, because if I received it, because I'm external, then all of your clients have received this email. It just so happens that this is an accounting firm. Now, you guys know it's tax season, right? So you have to understand when your risk posture goes up. And this is a situation where they're being targeted. They're being targeted. And I'm gonna tell you how I know they've been targeted, because I sent this email and then I immediately get an email back from the CEO saying, I shared the document below with you. Please click on the link to the document, log into your work email to review. It is safe and secure. Let me know if you have any problems. That's fishy too. That's fishy too, because I sent that previous email to 2 people. This only came back from the CEO. And I said, if he or she was the CEO, whoever the bad guy is would know I do not work for the company, right? So I looked at this and I said, okay, so I emailed the other person who wasn't on the original chain. And I said, looks like somebody's impersonating the CEO. If you read the response previously, you can tell that it's not someone that knows that Mary Chaney is a cybersecurity attorney, nor do they know that asking me to click on a link is one surefire way to get me not to click on the link. And also, I ended up picking up the phone. Now, this is when I pick up the phone and I say, hey, listen, looks like somebody's impersonating your CEO. You guys might want to do something about that. And so that is my example for today for the issue as it relates to the Security Operations Center and firefighting. I would like to open it up. I did say a lot and I was talking to myself for a lot. I would like to open it up for those that are out there new to the space, to see if there is any questions. You have to raise your hand. Evidently, I turned off chat. I'm gonna have to turn that back on before our next Aspire session. But if you have a question, raise your hand and see and ask what's going on out there. How do you guys feel? Are you new to the space? Are you in the space? Are you looking to get in the space? Who's open for sharing? Raise your hand. Nobody's open for sharing, huh? Wait, what? You guys do this to me all the time. I'm gonna wait because I was told that I should wait 30 seconds, but it's hard for me to actually be quiet. So oh, we got one. There we go. You're up, Rico.
Hey, how you doing, Mary, and everybody else? So quick question. So I'm new. Well, I'm not technically new. I'm also in your lead builders program tomorrow. I just wanted to make sure that I'm filling in whatever gaps, if they may exist, in my training, because there was an extensive training. So yeah, and while I've been talking, I completely forgot the question I'm supposed to speak to. Could you help me with that?
Okay, so what is the question? Are you're filling the gaps? The Aspire, and I went over what the Aspire sessions are going to be. So what's the question?
Honestly, I don't have a question.
Okay.
It was an awkward silence and I had to fill it. So
well, I appreciate it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open it up to everybody and allow everybody to talk, because I'm one that I need folks to come in and have some feedback with me and talk to me. Don't try to hide. I'm not gonna call on anybody, but I'm allow all of you guys to talk. I'll just bring the folks in that are still on the call to see if there's anyone else out there that new to the space. Questions about the Security Operations Center. I mean, I have plenty of stories, even going back to the FBI, on what it means to be that firefighter or sitting in that firefighter role. So definitely, if there's any questions, please come off of mute. You can come off mute. We're all one big happy family right now. It's a safe space to ask for questions, or you guys aren't video, only I'm videoed, so. Awkward silences, huh? Go, we got one. Good job, Emily. What's going on? How are you? Uh-oh.
Hello,
You can
hear me?
yeah, yes, can hear you now.
Good, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So, so I remember you had a list about all the jobs in the security operations, and I took some incident response classes in digital forensics, and I have seen job postings where they ask for a lot of requirements for those positions. Do you know how could it be a way to get into digital forensics incident response?
Yeah, okay, so forensics probably would be a little bit harder to get into than I think your SOC analyst roles. And so we'll get into that again, and I'll get into it now a little bit, where you're hunting for these individual roles. So I think that do you have any background in help desk or anything like that? Or are you trying to transition into cybersecurity and you chose the SOC as a place to go? You've taken some classes, and I'm assuming you probably received some certifications. Is that fair, Emily?
So I have a 1 year worth of help desk,
Okay.
and I just graduated with an associate's degree in cyber.
Okay. Yeah, and it's usually your organizations that are looking for that talent, that are looking for the newer talent, or your larger banks, the more mature programs, right? And so in reading a job description, which is what I will probably be doing in a couple of weeks, and trying to understand and break down what's required as opposed to what is some requested. Those are two words that they kind of sort of use in those spaces, and where you see yourself, and that depends on location, And if you're looking at MSSPs, because as I told you, we hired our MSSP to handle our L1 analyst role. So a lot of that entry level SOC analyst stuff was done by our MSSPs, which would be your, who did I have? Dell, I think we had, I can't remember. But there are several MSSPs out there that would allow you to get on that entry level track to do L1, L2, L3 type of activities for multiple clients and things of that nature. Corey, come off of mute, dear. Aren't you an MSSP? Aren't you?
Yes.
So talk to Emily.
Yeah. So as Mary mentioned, sorry, my name is Corey Kirkendall, and I'm an MSSP here in Dallas. And what we do is, we are their outsourced kind of a forensics, looking over their health care and how they're implementing and doing security from that perspective. So we're doing a lot of the things that Mary's talking about. We'll have a SIM in place. We either have a SOC or an outsourced SOC that we work with to look at alerts, making sure we're looking at any potential threat vectors, anything that may come up, whether it's hit with malware, business email compromise, and all of the above. So we spend a lot of time working with the end customers to do that. And sometimes customers have an internal IT staff that we augment and support so they can focus on being boots on the ground and other things. And we look at the security, where we do everything from manage the entire network security and everything from that perspective. So definitely opportunities to get on that ground level and have an opportunity to learn various different aspects of the security practice, or where you want to get better at or decide to focus.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here to help me out, Corey. I appreciate that.
No worries.
Yeah, so it's ultimately, if you're looking for, and what he's talking about is there are companies out there that just provide these types of services to other companies, right, on a broader scale. And that's also a vector that you can use to try to transition into the space.
Got it. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. That's what we're here to do, here to break down barriers and things like that. And questions, any other questions? Awkward silences. So again, as I shared with you guys, I've been doing this type of work for my entire career. I went into the FBI when I was in 2002. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. I went into the FBI and I was doing incident response then. And, when organizations end up calling law enforcement, that's another aspect of things. So, and then when I went into corporate America, I ran these types of teams where we were essentially firefighting and trying to prevent the bad guys from getting into the system. Lorenzo, you have your hand raised, dear.
Yeah, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the best way to prepare for AI, like chat GPT, that eventually they're gonna make a transition to the cybersecurity space?
Mm-hmm. So the question is, what exactly?
Like, how can we get ready to compete with that, or how can we improve our skills to still be on the market?
Are you referring to AI or machine learning doing security related activities? Or are you referring to getting into the space to do it yourself? I'm not understanding the question, I guess.
Yeah, it was the first statement that you mentioned. AI doing
the machine learning. Okay, so let me educate you guys on essentially the technology space and how we start to adapt new talent, new technologies to try to do functions that people have been doing. And the challenge that machine learning has, of course, is consistency. So, all right. Remember, I told you guys we had all these tools in our security operations center. Well, all those tools don't necessarily communicate with one another, right? So you can, for instance, use machine learning if the tool that you're using for machine learning is completely in your entire environment. Now, a smaller environment is easier to pull this off than a larger environment. And what I mean by that is we had SIM technologies that were sitting on every endpoint that we had, because you ultimately you have, telephones are now endpoint if you allow that to be connected to your network on your wireless network and how that's all doing that. So there's been this sense over the course of the past, I would say machines have supposed to have been taking over security for at least 7 years now, and it hasn't happened. And the reason it hasn't happened is because effectively it's not working the way they think it's going to work. There are pieces and places that machine learning could be utilized for. Like, no one really wants to sit around and tell Mary to clean her computer every time she gets infected with the virus. Machines can take over that and automate that. But when you start to automate things from a machine learning perspective, you start to, again, lose visibility because you're relying on the machine to tell you whether or not this is ransomware or this is something else. And then it becomes what kind of ransomware is it? Is it the kind, the garden variety ransomware that they don't steal data? Or is this the kind of ransomware that actually they're threatening to dump all of the information that they took? Because now ransomware is taking information and then encrypting it and telling the company, hey, if you don't pay me, I'm going to release this information. So you'll see in that machines can't do anything about that. So I believe since there are still 700,000 security jobs, the machines aren't the problem, and I don't think that it's going to be a situation where they're going to take over the bulk of the job, because there are still other things that security professionals do as practitioners that we can understand that others cannot. So that will be if you want to be, how do you prepare yourself? I think that as you continue to go on in your career and develop your subject matter expertise and whatever that may be, I don't think there's going to be ever a situation or ever a time where machines are going to take over the security profession. Corey, you off of mute.
Yeah, and I'll say the exact same thing. I always say that even in our world, what you figure out is that security world is very noisy, and you have to learn how to eliminate the noise. And what you find out in that AI and when machines get involved, you'll have a lot of false positives and things that you're going to have to drill down into, which you're going to have the skills in order to get down into a deeper level to either validate that what the machine pushed out was correct, or was it incorrect? But if you don't have that baseline learning and you rely 100% on the machine code to do what it's doing, then you're just following more down the rabbit hole, and you're not able to do that. So I always say is you have to know what you're looking for when it's working, so you'll know what it looks like when it's broke. But you also have to be able to identify that what the machine is pushing out as an error code or a potential problem, is it really a problem, or is it something that, like I say, is a false positive? And it doesn't go with just machine learning. You're going to also have other cybersecurity, professionals that you'll work with, that you'll bounce out. And what you find out is that everybody has a different opinion of how they get to the same place, but you have to have a solid foundation in order to call it out, whether you're talking to your peers or you're analyzing what the AI code is looking at. Now, the AI code is going to give you a great way to help minimize that noise, but you need to know how to interpret that noise to be able to come up with your own result, because that computer cannot present its findings to the person. You're going to have to be able to present what you found and justify why what that computer did was correct and why you feel it's correct. So be found on your foundations and what you're working through, and allow the machine learning to support you, not for you to support it and enable you. That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And it's just similar to, autonomous vehicles and the things that are going on out there. There still has to be some type of human element involved in everything that we do, in order to make it all work, because there has to be a judgment call, because cybersecurity is a business function, right? And if you turn off something that causes, because the machine told you to, and it causes a loss, or an outage, you're going to have to justify why you decided to do what you did in the first place, and why did you trust the machine over your own two eyes. So again, that's also an issue. Rico, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could speak more to like reverse engineering.
What do you mean? What it is?
Yes, and just like so I'm guessing you may know a plethora of computer languages. What might be the most important, or the most what you've seen the most of, and you recommend studying first and foremost?
Okay, so Rico, I'm going to tell you, I've been in this space for over 25 years. I have not been hands-on coding in probably about 20 of those years. So no, I do not. And I don't believe, and you'll hear me say this tomorrow, and I tell this to all of my leaders, I do not believe that certifications is the answer, or learning all of these things is the answer. I didn't want to be a technical person. I wanted to be a leader, right? And so I know enough to be dangerous. I know enough to understand the concepts, but I don't know a plethora of language. I know COBOL. Look, I'm gonna date myself, right? I know COBOL. I know C++. I can get into some HTML coding and things of that nature. But no, that all of the other stuff that you guys are doing now, I have not done that in a long time. But all that to be said, the COBOL programmer, when we were, the government's back-end infrastructure is still on COBOL, right? So you start to think, you think it's, and I think was it when the pandemic first happened, the government was looking for COBOL programmers, right? Because those back-end mainframe systems and all of that stuff is still sitting on those old programming languages. But I have not. I've been a leader since I left the FBI. So when I was a coder. I'm a coder by trade. So I have my information systems. I was a network engineer, so to speak, coming out of college. And then I went into went to law school. And then I went to the FBI. So no, I'm able to do investigations from a forensic perspective, more so than software. All that to be said, the reverse engineers is specific, right? And it's specific to the entity to which you are working for, whatever languages are on the back end, whatever software languages that are on the back end of whatever that person or that company is creating. That's something that you have to be mindful of. But I'm not a software engineer, so I can't necessarily give you that advice. Is there anybody else on the call that could potentially share what they see out there? Yeah, when I took that CISSP exam back in, what is that? Oh, that would have been 09 or 08. I've had my CSP since 2008. The software engineer stuff was my secure software coding was my weakest area, because yeah, I know. Sorry, Rico. I'm sorry. So we have about 4 minutes to go before the end of this webinar. I need to do the poll, don't I? Yeah, I need to launch the poll. Please take the poll and answer those questions. Hopefully I was able to break down some things for you, and I was able to give you some ideas about the Security Operations Center, what they traditionally call when you think about cybersecurity. As I said, and as we said in the beginning, these sessions will be twice a month. And within these sessions, you're going to learn about different things. So we have, upcoming, I will do the next session on where to hunt for all of these roles, right? And we'll look at some job descriptions and try to break down, you know, what the meaning behind some of this stuff that they're saying. And then the February sessions, ethical considerations in our roles, and as well as following your passion. So we'll have another speaker. So I'm just doing January, then I'm going to disappear, meaning I'll be around, you know, and I'll probably attend, but I won't be speaking or talking. I'll allow the guest speaker, and sometimes you'll get panels. Sometimes you'll just get an individual talking about what they do. And then, you know, we have our AWS series that are coming up later on in the year. So hopefully you guys learned a little bit about the Security Operations Center, what it is, and some of the roles that you may see out there. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to me, and we can close it out unless there's any other questions. No other questions, comments, concerns? All right, well, you guys enjoy your Friday the 13th. Rico, I will see you tomorrow, and enjoy your long weekend. This is a long weekend, and celebrate MLK Day. Hopefully you guys get that day off, and we'll talk again in a couple weeks. I look forward to continuing this journey with you guys.